Welcome back to Just a Dude podcast, where we dive deep into the lives, minds, and stories of fascinating folks. I'm your host, Nathan, and today we've got an episode that's sure to leave you laughing, thinking, and maybe even reevaluating some of your own stupid games. We're about to explore the art of turning life's little mishaps into tales of growth, friendship, and hilarity. So buckle up, because this ride is going to be both fun and enlightening. Joining me today is the mastermind behind the collection of stories that perfectly encapsulates the phrase, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. He's an author who has a knack for finding humor in the chaos of life's social blunders and turning them into profound lessons. Please welcome to the show the very talented Andy Dietrich. Andy, with your book, you've managed to make us laugh at ourselves while also nudging us towards a bit of self-improvement. Thanks for being here with us today, Andy. Thanks for joining us,
Nathan. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
You want to let the audience know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'll give you my this is me elevator pitch. My name is Andy Dietrich. I'm a German-born, lived in the Black Forest of the southwestern part of Germany till I was about 14. Then my mom and I decided to pack our things and we moved to Alaska, of all places. And there's a little side story that goes along with how and why and where and all that good stuff. So at 14, moved to Alaska, quite a bit of a culture shock and, in a couple different ways. And then, so I did my formative years there, did high school in Fairbanks, Alaska, experienced -40, and I had and experienced some other things that come along with living in Fairbanks, Alaska. Yeah. Northern Lights, beautiful though, right? You can't beat them. But then you get summer solstice and winter solstice. So all day sunlight, all day nighttime, right? So it's got some extremes. Then at 19, joined the military, did military service for about 4 years. I was in the Marines. I was stationed in Southern California in Camp Pendleton. Did that till about 2004. I got out and then moved to Vegas. And I told myself I'd live here for a year, maybe 2 years. It's been 21 years. I think I'll be here for a while. I think I found home. So yeah, Vegas is now home.
That's awesome. Now, do you live closer to downtown in Vegas, or are you more on the outskirts of the city?
Yeah, so Vegas, I think people get the misconception that Vegas just consists of really the Strip area and then the downtown area, right? If you go a little bit further north, Vegas is a fairly big city, right? Yeah. So it's sure people only identify the Strip and downtown, but there's a lot Vegas has to offer. Right?
Of course, us tourists, we know the Strip, right? But it's just like everywhere else. People think of. I don't know, when
Hawaii
I live
is just
in Ohio,
beaches, right? Or whatever, right?
Yeah, and I live in Ohio, so people think, oh, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and believe it or not, I'm 45 minutes from it. I've never been there.
Totally fair. I've been to the Hoover Dam once in my entire life.
Exactly.
Same thing. No, I think on that note, people get this really weird misconception about what places are, right? The first time that you come to Vegas, you expect glitz and glamour and lights, and of course, we have those, but it's not the way that Hollywood sells it to you, right? And I think everyone has that realization of, oh, well, there's certain truth to it, but it's not the way that it was sold to me.
Yeah, exactly. I think we see those, the touristy things and think that that's what life's going to be about. But I mean, really any city, probably in the U.S., and I know you traveled quite a lot, actually internationally, but I'm going to have to guess that most cities are kind of similar in most fashions as far as people live there and things. And, hey, maybe they got something cool like Vegas, like a Strip, or maybe not.
Yeah, I think also certain places come with a like a stereotype and also things that you're used to, right? Like God forbid, I shouldn't say God forbid. Let's assume that you're born and raised in Maui, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any like beachfront resort that you would ever go to and you're like, yeah, this definitely tops my experience. No, that's what you experience. That's your life. That's where you grew up at. Just like in Vegas, right? We've gotten so, in a good and in a bad way, so desensitized to entertainment and to what, the food that the place has to offer and just the things you can do and the people you can see. When you go other places, it's very hard to say, I'm going to be, surprised by the nightlife or by the entertainment. You just cannot beat Vegas. Maybe Macau, right, in certain aspects of it, but really we're so desensitized to the over extremes of everything here.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of funny that from the places that you've lived, right? You said you lived in Germany till you were 14, then you moved to Alaska. Was there a specific reason why Alaska was picked?
So my mother, and my friends call her Mama Dietrich. She's a G, right? If you ever get to meet her, she definitely is a full capital G, right? The letter G. She's always been very much in touch with her spiritual side, right? And she had these childhood dreams. Okay, let me rephrase that. When you deep down, you feel like you belong somewhere or you should go somewhere, you should do a certain thing, right? You have a drawing towards a place or a person or whatever it is. From what I gathered, she was drawn to Alaska. I believe there is some element where she believed that she spent a previous life or lives, in what is now Fairbanks, and she, may have lived those years as another person living with the Inuits, right? That was her kind of understanding of it. And I think that once you have a spiritual need or some sort of desire to go somewhere, like, do it. Just freaking do it. Like, it's
almost like a calling, right?
Yeah, it's almost like a calling.
Yeah.
Good way of putting it. Almost like a calling. And she's living more closer to me now. She's only moved down here a few years ago. But she lived in the bush.
That was my next question.
Yeah. We can talk about her for a minute, right? Actually, me segue into that. Ask me what my mother uses to stir her coffee.
What does your mother use to stir her coffee? I got to know.
Great question. Thanks for asking. So when she was living out in the bush in the middle of nowhere, Alaska, she had a plot of land with a log cabin, primitive living, running water from snow, electricity from batteries, right? Very, very primitive living out in the middle of nowhere. The nearest neighbor was like 45 minutes away by snowmobile.
Oh, wow.
And she would shoot, skin, gut, clean, whatever came in front of her house, right? Whether it be bear, caribou, moose, rabbits. So it turns out that bears, and I think all other mammals, have a small bone that actually is part of the penis. Humans don't have it for whatever reason, right? But I guess all other mammals do. So she stirs her tea, I shit you not, with the bone of a bear penis that she has carved out, and she's, harvested, whatever the term is, right, herself. And I'm like, that is probably the most metal thing you could ever do. I don't care how metal you are, that is more metal than that.
Absolutely. That definitely screams, all right, I'm a badass.
Yeah. She's a G, like I said.
Absolutely. Well, Andy, we've got you here to talk about your book, and I want to make sure we talk about that because I'm sure we could talk about many things other than your book. But play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? That's the name of it.
Yes.
And why don't you tell the audience a little bit about it, and then we'll go into it because I absolutely love the book. I thought it was fantastic. It hit with me. It's like a nice collection. I would call it like a collection of short stories. I don't know if that's how you'd categorize it, but and they're all about your life, which is fantastic. And just, it was so relatable for me. So I'll let you go ahead and explain to the audience what it's about.
Perfect. So thank you. I appreciate the kudos, right? And so the title is Play Stupid Games, Win Stupid Prizes. And the subtitle, which I think really sums it up nicely, it is short stories about friendship, growth, and social misdemeanors. Social misdemeanors meaning, the silly things I've got myself into and then sometimes out of, the unsavory, maybe more questionable decisions I've made, some of the maybe slightly illegal, things I've done, not to the point where I got myself in trouble with the law. But if you read some of the stories, you're like, maybe this is not the most legal thing that he could have done or could have said here, right? So it is a culmination, a collection of not all, but a good chunk of my experiences. All the stories are mine, right? They all happened either to me or to my close friends. None of the stuff is made up. It's all true to the best of my recollection. Now, some of the jokes and one-liners, right? I can't claim those are all, my own work. Those are definitely collected from other sources, but the stories are all true, unique, and they're all lived by me.
Yeah, because I think even in the book there a section of like some of your favorite phrases so I love that because I was like, oh yeah, I've heard that one before. I've definitely used that in my life. And
it's like the non-jokes. I love the non-joke section, right? Did you know that? Did you know that Dracula drove a Honda? Yes, because it's reasonably priced and it gets good gas mileage. It's a non-joke, right? There is no punchline. It's just a statement.
It was the dad joke type of thing, right?
Yes,
where it's like it's a joke, but it's not a traditional joke. But yeah, it was great. And I mean, so from your background, I think this was perfect for you to take these stories and write them down because you've had probably more experiences than the average person, I would say, definitely here in the U.S. But, we travel within the state, maybe do certain things, but you were in the Marine Corps, you went to college, right? You went to college after the Marine Corps, right? Yeah. So a little bit later than most people do, but that's okay. Cause I did the same thing. I started college when I was younger, but then I kind of dropped out and did I became a cop for a while and then I got laid off.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went back to school. So I was like some of those things that get you there, but yeah, it's different being in school as an older student.
I was the 24-year-old freshman. I joined a fraternity, so I was that 24-ish, at that point, 25-year-old pledge getting, we were never hazed. Okay, let me get that out of the way first, right? No, I mean that. I mean that with 100% honesty, right? And sincerity.
Okay, it wasn't one of those things
being sarcastic.
where,
we were never raised.
Whatever.
I will say, it even told my guys when I was in charge of the pledge classes after me, I told them, like, look, there are 3 things we will never do to you. We'll never touch you, no gay stuff, and we'll never embarrass you in public. And you can hold me to that, right? So we're not like traditional Southern, schools where you hear stories about those kind of things happening. And I'm like, dude, why would I want
to flagpole at 2 a.m.
Why would I want to be a
yeah.
part of a group that does that to other people, right? Of course, I get it as part of the initiation process, but at the end of the day, it's fucking disrespectful, man. Like, that's not cool. There's certain lines you just don't cross, especially like dudes with other dudes. Is like, look, come on, man. There's guy
definitely
code.
And there's a fine line too between joking around with somebody and taking it too far.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
that's definitely a very fine line in some instances.
So to your point earlier, I was the 24, 25-year-old pledge getting told what to do by the brothers who are 18, 19-year-old. And I'm just like, dude, I've been through Marine Corps boot camp. Like, what's the worst that you can do to me? Nothing.
You have more life experience than them. And now they're making you pledge, which is kind of funny.
But when I was in charge of the pledge classes after me, then the tables turned a little bit and they're like, oh crap, we got this former Marine yelling at us and doing stuff, right? I'm like, yeah, it's just part of the process,
Yeah, I have to. Did anybody ever call you like the old man or anything like that? I know 25 is not old, but when you think of college,
so we'll take a quick segue to all my fellow old school UNLV listeners. We had a thing that we all participated in called Juicy Campus. This was a thing 10, 15-ish years ago where this website was stood up, and it basically was just a big shit-talking platform for, I don't think it was just local to UNLV. I think anyone could participate with any school organization, but it was just turned into our little shit-talking platform, right? And of course, our group, our guys, our fraternity, we got a couple of comments. It's all anonymous. So anyone can say anything about anyone. But one of the comments was, and these guys, these fraternity guys over here calling us out by our fraternity letters, they got 2, it was me and this other guy who was about my age. They got these 2 geriatrics, 2 old dudes that don't even, I'm like, don't be jealous just because we got some seniority. Come on, like there's so much hate.
Geriatric at 25.
So much hate, right? It was all in good fun though, right? But that's the only time I was called out, not by name, but by association, right?
I've been in situations like that before, and I think it's funny, and people are, or you call, now I'm in my 40s, and you call people in their 20s kids, and trust me, I know they're not kids.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
Legally, they're adults, but when we think back to how I was at that age, I was a kid still.
I think since we're on that topic, I think that, us growing up, sure, we all as kids did dumb stuff. We all made some dumb decisions and said some dumb things that we maybe shouldn't have said in public. But at least when we went through, it wasn't all immortalized. It wasn't all put on Instagram or Facebook, or it wasn't all being recorded. Nowadays, these kids, I feel bad. Like I feel truly bad because these kids cannot, about kids, to your point, when we grew up, when we were being young and stupid, we did it within the privacy of our own friendship circle, right? It wasn't like everything was immortalized by being taped, recorded, put on Instagram, put on Facebook. I feel like these kids nowadays, they cannot get away from everything that they say and do is going to be cataloged and being held against them. God forbid, some of these kids who are now growing up and going to be our future leaders, if they want to run for office, they want to become a mayor, they want to run for president, be like, oh, well, Mr. Future president, can you explain what you said when you're 13 years old? I'm like, come on, dude, that's not fair.
Exactly. And that's the thing too, that I'm so happy that you folks like you and I grew up, we were right on the precipice of all this technology and information coming up, because we lived probably, I don't know how old you are, Andy, but I'm
mid-40s.
Probably, so we're about the same age.
We're about the same age,
So we grew up to where, we were writing book reports in high school that were still off of the Encyclopedia Britannica,
My God, don't get me started.
Yeah, now, now, we didn't have all that stuff. So like you said, the privacy, yeah, absolutely. It was within our own friend groups, right? Yeah, we'd get razzed from our own friend groups. You really, when we grew up, if you wanted to be a bully, you had to be a bully to somebody's face. And risk getting punched.
That's right.
Which nowadays, with all the social media,
it's so
these
easy,
kids are so bad. I mean, the stuff they'd never say that to their face.
Of course not. But then, oh my God, there was 2 things that I browse Reddit like most of us do, right? And I'll see like these insults that these kids will throw at each other on like Xbox Live or whatever. And you have to be very mindful about what you say, because if you throw 4-letter words around, they'll ban you right away. Mm-hmm. But like some of these G-rated or G-level insults cut so freaking deep. Like 2 of the ones I remember is, 1, you're like a day-old cup of coffee. Like that is a horrendously bad insult, right? And it's all G-worded letters or G-worded phrases. And the other one said, it was something like, I hope, see if I get the wording right, I hope that the other side of your pillow is never cool. I'm like, dude, who says that,
That's
man? That's mean,
deep.
right?
That's pretty deep if you think about it.
Right?
Yeah, that is.
That's horrible.
Wow, that's great. Now I can see why you wrote a book, and that's where I was going to go, Andy, because you have a good way of telling it. But how did you, so obviously you had some life experiences, and you've done some things in your life. But how did you get the idea to say, shit, I'm going to write this down and make a book?
Yeah. So I realized that over time, I told the same 20, 30 stories over and over and over again, right? And then as you tell them over and over, you get the timing right, the punchline, you draw people in with the storytelling, and then you do the relief of here's what happened afterwards. And right, so it turned into like a flow, right, of things. And I thought, look, these stories are, in my opinion, worth telling. They usually have some sort of, makes you think at the end of it, or some sort of maybe you can learn from my mistakes. And as I sat down, I thought maybe there's enough for putting it down on paper and making a book out of it. Then I had some personal, like some thoughts, some opinions, some unpopular opinions as well. Right towards the second half of the book, it'll get a little more serious, I guess you could call it. Right, the first half is silly stories. The second half is more reflections and opinions and stuff like that. So I had a lot to share, and every so often I would have a talk with someone, and if they were asked for advice, I'd give it to them. And every so often they would say, you should write a book. And I'm like, of course, everyone says that, right? But never actually does it. So I started writing down the stories as I kind of remember them. Because when you're put in the spot and say, someone says, tell me all your stories. Well, you can't, you're locked out, right? Of like thinking about that, right?
Like we couldn't tell each other stories in a lifetime probably because you can't remember them all.
Right. But then
especially not at one time.
Absolutely, right. But then if you have you tell someone a story and they go, oh, that reminds me of a story I had. And then as that happened, I started writing them down, just the topics, just the titles. And then I started, writing it out, the actual full-length stories. And my biggest worry was, well, I didn't want to just have 50 pages worth of content, because that's not something worth publishing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It came out to about 160 pages. I'm like, yeah, we got something here, and I'm happy with the result.
Absolutely. And the thing for the audience is just, it's such an easy read.
Thank you.
Meaning that there's some great stuff in there. It is absolutely great stuff. Some of the stories are absolutely hilarious, and there's some good life lessons in there too. There are, even with some of the humor that comes in, but it reads so easily that, it's not like your typical novel where I'm trying to read through this chapter and get through, and maybe this chapter's boring me. There was not one page in the book, Andy, that I found boring at all. So I was, like I said, I was hooked.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I was hooked on it. So, and like I said, it made me think of like, here's a gentleman, right? Just a dude that sounds just like me through his book. And that's why I was like, first of all, when I saw the title of your book, I was like, all right, this is a guy I got to have on the show. Right? Because I can't even tell you how many times I've said that in my life.
It's a great phrase, right? Because it explains itself, right? Exactly.
It does. And, I was like, if you could do a book like that. And then when I read it, I was like, I've been looking forward to this since I finished reading it. So
perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. That really means a lot to me. So thank you.
Definitely happy about it. I'm going to pull it up. But Andy, let's, out of the book, was there a specific story that you were like, this is the funniest one, or this is just the best story that I loved putting down on paper?
Yeah. So I think the very first one, Are You Russian? Right. I think that one has I put it first for a reason, right?
Yes.
If we have the time, I can give you my iteration of it, right? And we can tell it from start to finish. That's one of them.
Hey, I got all the time that you do. So
perfect. All right.
Go right ahead.
There is one more from the first half about a young lady asking if Alaska was down there. Well, we can talk about that. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
That was a good one. Yep.
And then there's, I think, two more life-ish lessons towards the back that we'll talk about that in a minute after that as well. Okay. So the Are You Russian story. So, okay, this goes back to me going to UNLV, right? First year, or even I think it was first year college, freshman. I decided to join a fraternity. Why? Because Hollywood promised me a good time, and I was going to, have a good time at college. And part of that is joining a fraternity. That's what the movies, right? The movies
That's what they tell you to do.
Absolutely. 100%.
If you want the full college experience, join a fraternity, or if you're a female, a sorority, right?
100%. So I go to an event, right? And there's going to be a get to know the brothers get to know you, kind of like a two-way interview process, right? I had no idea what to expect, right? And also me being a little bit older, I felt a little bit out of place because a lot of these kids, they weren't kids, but, from my point of view, younger.
Yeah. Compared to you, right? Compared to us, they would have been kids for sure.
18, 19 years old, sometimes even 20, right? And on a good day, 21, right? So I would sit down with these other dudes. Part of them were also there to kind of try out for the fraternity. And then there was a bunch of brothers there with, we're all wearing like shirt and tie, and they're looking presentable. And I remember there were these fairly large round tables, and I sat down. Two dudes sat down next to me, and then one of the guy leans over and he goes, "Hey, so what's your name?" This, that, and the other. And then he goes, "So, are you Russian?" Was a little taken aback by that, and I'm like, "No, actually, I'm German." And the guy starts laughing his ass off. He's like, "Oh my God, this guy!" And he's like nudging his dude. He's like his friend. He's like, "Dude, this guy's got jokes. Listen to him. I asked him if he was Russian. He said he was German." And they started laughing, right? And I'm like, I was completely bewildered. I had no idea. First
so
of
you
all, why
guys
he
were both
asked
coming
me
at that comment from a different angle.
right? And I had no idea why he would, first of all, it would be interested in my heritage. Two, like, why would that matter? And why me saying German have even more to do with the question, right?
Yeah.
And he's like,
and why is that funny?
Why is that funny? I had no idea. And we'll clarify that in a second, right? And he's like, no, bro. No, you don't understand. I'm asking, are you Russian? I was like, no, dude, I told you I'm German. He's like, oh shit, this guy's got jokes. Listen to him. I was like, look, I don't understand why this is so funny. And he finally realized, we made that eye contact, and I was like, help me, because I have no idea what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And he finally realized that I truly had no idea what he's talking about. And he was like, no, oh no. He says, no, I was asking, are you rushing? I'm like, I don't know what that means. He goes, oh, okay, rushing is the name of the process, this interview process. You're rushing a fraternity. But when he said it, I heard him as saying, are you Russian? I'm like, rushing, yes, I am here to rush. I am rushing, yes.
Yes.
And then, we got a good laugh out of it. Then he goes, he afterwards, he turns to me, he goes, why did you think I asked you if you're a Russian? I go, I don't know, dude. I have no idea.
I would have probably been like, who talks to somebody and wants to know their cultural background the first thing off the...
Are you Scandinavian? Like, yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How did you know?
Let's go invade a country together. Like, how do
exactly. Exactly. It's funny how those little, one word where you didn't understand what he meant by it, and he thought you were being funny, But hey, you know what? Had you not had that interaction, you may not have made that. Was that the fraternity that you joined?
No, it wasn't. Right.
Okay.
Oddly enough, it was not. And actually, I joined the fraternity a year later. And then that particular one, the first one, I don't remember which one that it was, because I was just kind of caught up in what the letters were and all the other stuff. And I wish I would have remembered who those guys were, so I can like find that group later and be like, hey, who was rushing the group, 2 semesters ago, because I was there and I have a funny story.
Yep. That's funny. That's the type of stories that you get in this book. And it's, they're just fun. I mean, to hear, I don't want to say to laugh at someone else's expense, but I think like for me, I laughed at it because I could just identify with almost every story. I'm like, I've got a similar story in my life where, I've got funny stories where people probably misheard me or vice versa. But yeah, it's just, different things. But it's funny how you can get a one little misunderstanding, get a funny story out of it.
That's funny.
But yeah, that one hit on the first, because I was like, wait a second. I'm reading your profile, right, or your bio, and I'm like, I know he's German. Why would they ask you why you're Russian? And then I got into it. I'm like, I get it.
That makes sense. Are you Russian? Like, yes. Yep. No, I am. I'm not, but I am Russian. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So... And that's right off the bat. And, when you get into that story, it's so well written, and it's just long enough for you to get the story, get the humor of it. And some people will try to drag that out to make the book longer and stuff. But I think the way you wrote all the stories, it was just perfect. Just enough information to get a good picture in your mind and put you there in that situation.
And you'll see if you go through it, right? You'll see things like editor's notes and like conversation I had with myself. I thought the editor's
notes were hilarious.
So that's just me. That's just me being the editor, right? Me being go back and forth with myself. There was no other person. I wrote the damn thing.
It made it sound like there was another person, and because at first I didn't realize, because I read it. It's on. I don't think. Do you have it on paperback or anything, or is it just a
PDF?
Oh, you do. Okay.
And
yeah, because I got it on. I don't know if you guys. I got it on my Kindle here. So
cool. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I ended up picking it up. But yeah, there's little numbers on the Kindle that you see, and you're in line, and you're like, "What is this?" And then I think I might have been halfway through the book before I actually clicked.
Realized, okay,
hey, there's a bunch of these, and then I started hitting every single one I got, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is funny." Your use of stop using literally.
Your misuse of the word literally is figuratively driving me up the wall, right?
Exactly. And then the next note is like, okay, you used it right there.
It's proper in the proper context. That's fine. You can have this one.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun. And you know what's funny is you tell me that story, And it's even funnier that you were the editor, because it does make it sound like there's someone else editing that, you have a good back and forth with. So that's kind of
The
funny.
only editor was Grammarly. I ran the thing. Well, no, I'll take it back. The only other editor was my mom and my girlfriend. They were the first ones to read it, and they gave me some pointers on spelling, grammar, just some of the things that just stood out. And there were even some typos I caught even way after the fact. After it's been released for a year, I'm like, there's a typo right here that no one else caught. And I tell people all the time, if you find something that's off, there is no professional editor. There is no reviewer, rewriter, or whatever. Just let me know so I can make the corrections. But I think we're at the point now where I haven't found anything recently.
Yeah, I did not notice anything. And it's funny you say that, because there is another author that I follow on Amazon who I've had a few of his books, and there are just grammar mistakes everywhere.
And it's disappointing, right? It screws up the flow,
okay,
right?
I'm like, okay, I get it. I could still get the whole story without it. But you're kind of like, man,
I think it breaks momentum, right? It breaks the immersion when you read something,
because you're like, wait, that word doesn't fit.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, you're like, that word doesn't fit, or that's misspelled, so you get off topic, and it, like you said, it breaks the flow.
It's funny, my mom, when she reviewed it, and she has done some work, right, some heavy work with English and corrections, like English correction and teaching English and everything. So her English may be more like proper, right? Even though she still has a thick German accent, she speaks, in my opinion, more proper, like grammarly appropriate English. So when she read it, the one piece of feedback she had, she goes, "You write the way you talk," which may be a little off-putting because you talk in the way that a German would with the sentence structure, right? So some words may be off in how a traditional, like a native English speaker would say them. And she said, it may behoove you, and however she said it, it may benefit you, I think she said, to have someone with an actual professional English background go through the book and kind of reword and rewrite. And I took the advice, I thought about it for a second, and I thought, no, I don't want it to sound so perfectly English clean, right, and curated that it loses the cultural aspect of me being a bilingual speaker, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I thought I even liked some of the edits in the book where you would write something and then you would like strike through it and then go again, because it's like, oh, I get two different views of this story now, from your point of view of how you were telling it. So it's just a fun book all the way around. And I think that's what I loved about it was I haven't seen anything. It kind of reminded me of not quite as much, but like a choose your own adventure book.
Okay.
Where you're like reading through adventures and you're like, I don't know where this is going to go. Where am I going next? So not that you're necessarily choosing the adventure, but it's just like one adventure after another. And just to hear it, it's great. And like I said, because I think any reader that reads it, that's what I would classify. I always say normal, and I put that in, quotations, because what the hell is normal? Nobody knows. But, for us normal everyday folks, I think everybody's going to love reading it because you're going to just relate to it.
I put a little bit of everything in there for everyone, right? So there's some really inappropriate punchlines. There's some introspective stories. I talk about some friends who commit suicide. I talk about some really esoteric, geeky things, right? So there's a little bit in it for almost everyone, right? And if you don't like it, that's perfectly fine. I even think I put a disclaimer in there saying, if you don't like it, that's fine. Like, put it down. It's fine. And I tell people when you're done reading it, I ask for a genuine review on Amazon. If you liked it, say that. If you don't like it, say that too. Like, if you truly did not like any of it,
because I do have to leave a review. I'm writing that down right now.
But I'm like, look, if you want to give me 3 stars because you couldn't connect, with me on some of these stories, that's fine. Like, it's not for everyone, but be honest, be genuine about it.
Get good feedback so if because I guess so you wrote the book and you went and did stories because, like you said, you were telling the same stories over again. I think a lot of us do that.
Mm-hmm.
How did you actually get the motivation though to say, you know what, I'm going to write this down, and like, did it take you a long time to actually get through all that?
So the entire process took about 2.5 years, right? But that was also with like me taking 4 months off here, taking 6 months off there, then having a burst of a weekend where I just sit there and just start typing, right? So 2.5 years with some edits and some rewrites. There's a couple of stories that didn't make it because they just weren't appropriate, even for my understanding of what is appropriate and what isn't. There were some that just were not appropriate for sharing with the world, right? That's a story I can tell you when we're having a drink, but not something that I want to, project to the world for everyone to see and hear, right?
Yep, totally understand that.
So, like I said, 2.5 years, and I think it was just one of those things where I was looking for something to do, and I don't mean that in a way of I was bored, right? I keep busy at work, I keep busy in the relationship, I have woodworking I do on the side, I have a good circle of friends that keep me entertained, right? There's tons of nightlife to do here. But I want to do something that I can pour pour maybe not like my heart into. I did in this one, right? But it's something that it was like a passion project, right? That, I feel like people easily talk about their project, whether it be writing a manuscript, painting a painting, or taking a trip to Thailand or whatever it is. Everyone has that one thing that they always talk about, rebuilding an engine for a 68 Corvette, right? And everyone always talks about it, but rarely do people actually do it. And the worst, I shouldn't say the worst, but the halfway point is when they start it and then they tell all their friends about it for years and nothing ever comes of it. And they just need the dopamine drip up when they're like, oh, that thing I told you about 6 months ago. Well, I'm still thinking about it. And we're like, oh, good job. Yeah, I can't wait to see it, when it's done. I didn't want to be that guy. So I literally didn't tell anyone I was even working at this until the beta print was released. And I said, hey, I'm releasing a book. Like, oh shit, you wrote a book? I'm like, yeah.
Were people surprised that you wrote a book?
Some
Did
were,
they
some
see that
weren't.
coming? No.
Yeah, I think if you know me, and I think you've gotten to know me well enough by now that my circle of friends, my group of people that knows me, I think most of them or a good chunk of them were like, okay, yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah.
I think one of the feedbacks I've gotten, my friend said, of all the people I know that should have written a book, you're definitely like on the top 3. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll take that.
That's awesome. At least that's good feedback from at least your friend group.
Yeah, for sure.
It is funny you say that though, because when I started podcasting, it was the same thing for me. I didn't want anybody to know. It took me like a year before I
Takes a while. Yeah.
Before I actually got up and running and doing it. And, I've only been doing it for since December 13th of last year. And it's been taken off. But
hold that thought. How was your first one? How was your first one from your point of view?
My thing that I try to do is try to get just a little bit better each episode or each interview. So it's tough though, because, my main focus, like when I go to edit, is to make sure that my guests look as good as they possibly can, because no one's going to want to come on the show if I make you look like garbage, But on the other hand too, I realize I got to make myself look well. I try to work on speaking because I have a very large tendency to say either or right after everything. And so I do a lot of editing of that out. But yeah, it was getting the courage to get up and do it and kind of figure out, like, am I going to be in a specific niche, or am I going to do this or that? And that was kind of tough. And I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to call it Just a Dude Podcast, because that's who I am. And
solid. I like the ease of how that rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. And I just want to talk to normal, everyday people that maybe have an extraordinary story or two to share, or maybe they write a book about all their extraordinary stories. That's what I love about it, because it's just regular folks that, we all probably had struggle or adversity at some point in our life. We weren't handed $1 million to start an empire. We started literally from the bottom and worked our way up, and we've done some amazing things along the way. So why not share that with folks?
So maybe you can relate with me on this one. I feel like when anyone consumes something like a finished product, whether it be watching your podcast, reading my book, listening to a piece of music, right? We consume the end result. But what people who've never done it don't understand that for the 3 minutes of a song that you listen to, that producer sat there for 40 hours, right? For every podcast that someone can enjoy that you put out there that may be an hour long, you probably noodled on it for 20 hours trying to get the editing just right, notwithstanding the interviewing process, right? And getting the audio right. There is so much work that all gets condensed. And it's like you say you walk into an art gallery and say there's an artist there who painted a couple of paintings, right? Mm-hmm. And they've poured, God knows, 20, 40, and 100 hours into each painting. And then someone can just go by and look it up and down and go, it's all right. And then just turn around, walk away. And
exactly. They have no idea what the work is. Like you said, 2.5 years to get the book done. And that's a long time. And the funny thing is, though, is that these were all stories that you had in your head. So you kind of knew what you wanted to write, but just getting it down on paper, making it sound right, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, that was a little challenging. And it's one of those things that there was no deadline. I didn't have to do it. There was no, hey, I want to get this done by this date. But there's also, it's no pressure, which is good and bad, right? When you have no pressure, you can take your time, but it also means you can take your time, which also means you can never get done, right? So it definitely was I would sit there for, like I said, I'd have a 4-month hiatus. I'm like, maybe I'll get it done next year. Maybe I'll get it done this summer, maybe the next spring. And then finally, I'm like, it's not one thing that I was reminded of. It's not going to write itself, right? If you want to get somewhere, if you want to take a trip, you want to go to, I'm using the destination of Thailand again, right? If you want to go to Thailand, you have to book the flight, right? There's no other way you're going to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know how you would, that'd be a hell of a boat ride, wouldn't it?
Well, even with a boat ride, you have to
Yeah.
get on the
Oh,
boat,
that's true.
right? There's a
Exactly.
first step you have
Yep.
to do. It's not going to ride itself,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. And that's one thing I think people don't understand is that you're never going to accomplish anything if you don't at least try.
Yeah.
You don't at least start
100%.
it, you know? And that's where I've found that, you know, folks like yourself that take that moment to say, hey, you know what? I've got some good stories in my life. And, you know, will people like it? Will they not? You know, I don't know. You know, I was the same way with the podcast. Will people like it? Will they not? I don't know. It's still up in the air. You know,
Yeah,
I'm getting, you know, I've hit good download numbers for only being a couple months old. But, you know, the nice thing is it's kind of a passion or,
Good.
you know, a good hobby that I like. And I'm going to, you know, I'm not here for money. I'm not here to do anything.
Better
I
than
just
a
want
meth
to share.
addiction, right? Marginally,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, just a smudge better.
Probably cheaper too, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, maybe not initially, but yeah, in the long run for sure.
Make some interesting friends along the way and both on both
exactly.
paths, right?
And I mean, who needs teeth?
Some fake ones. Who cares, right?
Yeah, right.
I don't have to chew my food. I can just blend it, you know, put it in a blender and drink it. Who cares, you know? Like,
And
chewing is for the peasants.
If I'm on meth, you know, who cares?
So you can work for 5 days straight, right? Who cares?
Exactly. No, that is funny. It's good though to hear your story and that you put it down on paper. And then, so I did notice the book and I wanted to ask, so you laid it out into 2 parts basically. And can you explain a little bit why you did it, why you decided to do that instead of just, you know, run it all the way through?
Yeah. So my initial thought was to intersperse, because you've read it, you can probably see that the first half is I call literally the part is called silly stories. And there are fairly silly stories, right? The second part is a lot more serious, where it's a lot more like reflections, some opinions, right? And I just kind of open myself up. I'm vulnerable in a couple of those stories where I'm putting myself out there. And I first thought that I was going to intersperse, like have it a silly story followed by a non-silly story, silly story followed by a non-silly story, just kind of go back and forth and back and forth. And that was my initial thought of how to put it together. But then I kind of thought that it would kind of mess up with the flow. I think the biggest part about storytelling is finding a flow of the story. Just like a movie, right? If there's too many things happening at once, or there's too much of a lull in between 2 scenes, you mess up the flow of the narrative. And I think if I were to go from silly to not silly and have that high and low, that flow would always be kind of like, okay, what are we doing now? Are we being serious? Are we being not serious?
Right.
And that to me is very important. Like I joke a lot, right? I use humor to cope with things. Especially inappropriate dark humor. I love it.
Me too.
But then there's times when you have to be serious. And when you're trying to be funny during a serious moment, it completely breaks what you're trying to be serious about. You know, it's not like the Marvel movies where they do a really good job of having action with comic relief. But when you have that pressure that really means something, you can't just throw a punchline in there to break the tension, because no, we were all in this right now. We need to hunker down for a minute and be vulnerable to each other, with each other, to understand really what's going on and not just go, oh, punchline, ha ha ha, right? So that was the initial thought, high and low. And then I kind of nixed that for a while. And then I thought, well, maybe I can put my opinions maybe like in the footnotes, right? Because some of the things I could tie into some of these stories. And then I just did the formatting of that didn't work out too well, because I would have a footnote that would be half the page. That didn't work out either, right?
Yeah.
So I just came to, well, you know, look, and oddly enough, this format here, having part 1 and part 2, I've had about 50-50 feedback on it. Some of my friends and readers said they loved the first part, and the second part, one guy even said, I felt like you were just ranting for this, or rambling for the second part. I'm like, I can totally see why you would say that, right? It's just my opinions and my thoughts. Other people have said, I really got a lot out of the second part. The first part was entertaining, but I really connected with some of the second part insights, because that makes a lot more sense to me. So it's been about 50-50 on the feedback of that. And I think because of that, it has a little bit for everyone, right?
Yeah. And I think what the nice thing is it almost makes it into 2 books. You know, it gives you a nice humorous side that you get to start off with. And then you get the, like you said, the more serious side of Andy. But there's good stuff in there. I loved it both, because I thought while the first part was silly stories and things like that, you still had some good anecdotes in the second part too. So it's not like it's just all, you know, gloom and doom. I know some people think like that, oh, he's getting serious, so it's gloomy or what. No, it's not that at all. It's
just sincere,
it's just more
like really
serious
sincere.
than it's more serious than the first part. It's not the funny stories. It's more about life lessons and you know, just how you see things or handle things. I thought that was great. Just on some of those stories, how you would end it on an upbeat of saying, you know, just about how to live as a better person.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And that was kind of like my aim too. I didn't want to just one thing I did not want to do is just have me preach and have me just be like, I know better than you and I know how to live a better life and you need to do this to enjoy yourself more. It's like, no, I want to explain things in a way that makes sense using analogies, anecdotes, personal experiences, and say, here's something I went through and here's this thing I learned from that. I went through some rough times too in my life where it's like, hey, this is not everything is, unicorns and rainbows. You have to go through some dark times too to appreciate the good times, right?
I think without the adversity, the reward probably wouldn't mean as much.
I agree, 100%. And I've always had a fascination with the idea of the phoenix, right? The phoenix dies, and from its ashes rises a new one, right? And I think that there is a lot of value, right? A lot of kind of like not a life lesson, but there's value in that to where we all. Let's get metaphysical for a second here. We all live a multitude of lives. The person that I was 5 years ago is not the person I am today. The Andy I was 20 years ago is definitely not the person I am today.
Yeah, the right? Nathan that I was 20 years ago is definitely 100%. Not who I am today.
And those old selves of ours are dead, and they have to be for us to grow and progress. And from that death of our old personas, from its ashes, rise the new us. And hopefully with better outlook, better traits, better experiences, maybe not always, right? But the idea is that you cannot just be the same person throughout your entire life. You have to die so the new one can rise from its ashes.
Yep. I like that analogy. That's, using the phoenix there. I don't think I've ever heard that related to human life, but I love that idea because you're absolutely right. We're constantly evolving, if evolution is the way to say it. But, physically, mentally, we're evolving. As I get older, I feel like my physicality is going the opposite way.
Skin starts dragging and drooping and sagging. I'm like, this didn't used to sag.
You're like, you go to the doctor and say, hey, my neck hurts. And they're like, what'd you do? And you're like, I slept.
I coughed wrong.
Exactly. I threw my back out mowing the lawn. I don't know, whatever it was,
I dislocated my shoulder reaching for a sandwich. Okay, sir, you're old. Okay, I can't help you.
Exactly. But yeah, no, it's good because you're absolutely right, though. We're constantly evolving. And I think no matter what stage of life you're in, whether you're, a teenager, you're a young adult, you're getting into your 30s, 40s, even into your, like you said, who's this geriatric? You do get into your actual geriatric days.
So many times in my head, whether it be at work or when I go online or even when I see people out and about, in my head, I'm like, get off my lawn. Goddamn kids, get off my lawn.
Exactly.
With a cane in my hand, right? Like, get off my lawn.
Exactly. How dare you? You know how long I spent on that? No.
That's right. We had it nice and quiet before you showed up. Get off my lawn.
Oh, there goes the neighborhood.
What's your last name so I can find your parents?
That is so funny. So my wife and I don't have any kids. So I actually love seeing the kids in the neighborhood because they'll ride their bikes up and down the street and stuff. But I could see myself as I get older being like, thank you, kids. That's you know how long I spent on that lawn?
Keep it quiet. I'm trying to sleep. Nap time is life.
Exactly. I didn't work all day to hear you guys scream at night.
Shut the fuck up. I'm trying to sleep.
Just trying to think of something my parents would have said or my grandfather.
So did you get into The Simpsons like in the early couple of seasons when it was still good?
Yeah.
Okay. Some of the best, and I mean the best humor and comedy and punchlines were from the first 5 seasons of The Simpsons.
When the animation was not as good as it is today.
Cheesy. It was so bad, right? But it was so deliciously cheesy. Okay. So there were many episodes, but one that I kind of in my head replay over and over was, so Homer buys this auto dialer to pitch his thing where everyone should send him $1 for happiness or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so he's auto dialing everyone in the town. And the scene then goes, Ned Flanders, his next door neighbor, wakes up to a phone call 2:00 in the morning, and he picks it up and he's like, hello. And it's the auto recording. Hello, friend. Would you like $1? He's like, click. Mm-hmm. And a minute later, ring, hello, greetings, friend. Would you like $1? And he's like, click. And then Ned's wife says, just don't pick up the phone. And he's like, I can't not pick up the phone. So as they're bickering back and forth, Homer then yells from across the walls, like, would you shut up? We have people trying to sleep in here. I don't know. Just
that's fun.
The self-inflicted nonsense of that show, the writing was just so gold back in the day.
Yes. You know what's even better about The Simpsons is when we look at their predictions. About, how they ever go back and they say, oh, see, The Simpsons predicted this 2 years ago that Donald Trump was going to win the presidency. Exactly. All those things. I don't know where they get their writing from, but obviously.
Do you know Conan wrote for The Simpsons back in the day?
That's where he started. Yeah, that was one of his first jobs as a writer on that. And now look at him. I mean, he's got his own show for years.
He was on Hot Ones. That was a good one to watch.
Was he?
Yeah, he was. That was a good one. Yeah.
I just saw it. I haven't seen the episode yet, but I guess Bill Murray went on Hot Ones recently. Yeah. So I've got to check that one out. That'll be a good one. It's so weird. Bill Murray all of a sudden, like, just coming out of, the ash, like a phoenix himself, coming out of the ashes, he's doing podcasts all over the place and
He was in
TV shows and
Principals
everything.
for a hot minute. If you watch Principals, that was a good show.
Yes.
It was a really dirty, raunchy, like HBO comedy that he was on for like 1 or 2 episodes. He doesn't have a big part, but just him being there. It's like, yeah, Bill Murray.
It is. He's just classic. He's one of my favorite. I love zombie movies, and I love Zombieland, where he gets killed in that
was
one.
a long time ago. It was like 20 years ago, wasn't it?
I know.
It was a long time ago.
It was like 20 years between the two movies, or 10, 15 years, something like that, because they've got Zombieland, and Zombieland 2 came out a couple years ago. But yeah, it was like almost 20 years in between them.
Do you know they're making a 28 months later? They're working on that right now. So they had 28 Days Later, which is a kind of like a cult classic, like zombie flick, and then 28 Weeks Later. That was a deliciously, like, really, really well done, in my opinion. A really well made, fast running zombie apocalypse.
Which, out of all zombies, the fast running ones are the ones that scare the shit out of me.
Right. And now they're making if it's either 28 months or 28 years later, and they had a trailer, like a teaser trailer out for it. I can't wait for that one. I hope they do a good job with it. Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of zombie movies and stuff with zombies. Just thinking, I always tell my wife, I'm like, what are we going to do when it hits, She's like, well, you're just going to have to shoot me in the head because I'm going to be no good to you. I was like, well, okay.
I mean,
at least
that's honest.
Yeah, at least I know the plan.
So let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
The show The Walking Dead.
Yes.
What were they referring to with the title, The Walking Dead?
I never thought about that. But now that you say that, it makes me
The Walking
think,
Dead?
Because you think The Walking Dead would be the walkers, right?
That's the easy one, right?
But is it the people?
If you think about it, it's the main characters, right? If you can spin that and go, because you are the Walking Dead, dude.
Yeah. Will they survive?
You're dead already. You just happen to be walking still,
You just don't know. Yeah.
I feel like when you either watch the movies or the shows or you play the games or whatever, people are like, yeah, the survivors be like, okay, look, let's be real. 98% of everyone here, there's a very, very, very small chance that you're going to survive. Just admit, or just concede to the fact that you're not going to make the apocalypse. You're going to be one of those biters, okay? You're not going to be the hero. You're not going to have...
the odds are going to be against you, especially if you live... Like, I couldn't imagine where you live in Vegas with the population out there. Yeah, that would definitely... If something hit there, you'd forget it.
We have a lot of gun owners. Yeah. No, if there would be apocalypse... I kind of looked at my house, too, and I'm like, if shit were to hit the fan, my house is not very defendable. It's not. It just isn't, right? Not that I should ever have to find, ways to, like, kind of realize that or whatever, kind of like make myself believe I should make a fortifiable house or whatever. But if somewhere hit the fan, there'd be anarchy and like bands and tribes and groups roving the streets. I'm like, I'd probably find my mom and be like, Mom, where are you? Because you got that survival skill that I need.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, because she knows how to live off grid. She could take you out to the middle of nowhere. And
so it's perfect. We just all got cram in there and take our cats, have me, my girlfriend, her, and our 2 cats combined on one RV.
There you go. Yeah, my wife and I have a small pool behind camper that we'll take with us. We actually did a cross country trip this last summer with it. That was kind of fun, but that was a lot of driving. It's like 3,700 miles by the time we were done. So
yeah, that's a distance.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we went all the way out to Wyoming, I think, is as far west as we went, and then
from Ohio,
we went down
that's
to
a good
Arizona
drive.
And we went to the Grand Canyon and then drove back from there. So
and there's nothing but dirt out there, nothing but just like dirt and desert. Right? There's nothing to look at.
But you know what? For me, from Ohio, it was cool because all I ever see in the summertime is green, and then in the wintertime it's white.
We get gray. I mean, gray. I say like just sand color, right? That's all we get all year round. Dust and sand and maybe mountain color. That's about it. Very little green.
Yeah.
I will say this is actually one story I did not put into the book. If you want to hear it, I'm happy to share it with you. So I enlisted out of Fairbanks, Alaska. Keep that in mind. That comes into play here in a second. So when you enlist from a place, that's your home of record for military purposes, right? Then when you get released from the military, you have 2 options. You can either move all your stuff that you have accumulated, that you have in the barracks. You can move it all yourself, meaning you get all your personal effects, you stick it into a box, and you drive it back to your home of record, and they'll reimburse you for every cent that you drive times the weight of the vehicle, whatever. Or you can choose for them to pack up all your stuff and move it for you. They'll literally just ship it to your home of record and then call it a day, and then you shake hands and you walk away. Well, I decided to do a do-it-yourself, right? A Diddy move, right? Do-it-yourself move.
Yeah.
And packed all my stuff. And the girl I was dating at the time, she had a truck. And I'm like, hey, can I use your truck to move to Vegas? And he goes, sure. So we weighed her truck empty, loaded everything up, weighted heavy because you need the weight so I can do the calculations and everything. Well, my home of record, keep in mind, was Fairbanks, Alaska, 3,000 miles away from Southern California. So I'm like, so I drove to Vegas with all my belongings, got situated, got set up, and then filled out the paperwork saying that, hey, I went back to my home of record, 3,320 miles all the way back to Fairbanks, Alaska. Here are the weight scale, receipts of how heavy the vehicle was. Here are the mileage. Right? I didn't have any receipts for gas. They could reimburse you that as well, right? But I'm like, the only receipt I have is one in Bakersfield, right? For no reason. And I'm like, how can they prove that I didn't go back to Fairbanks? How can they prove that I stopped in Vegas? And
I mean, how can they, unless they tracked you?
Yeah, they send me a check for like $1,200. I'm like, that's the last paycheck I'll get out of the military. I'll take it. Thank you very much.
For once, you got one up on them. For what? Because I'm sure they got plenty on you. Right.
I will say I had a really, really cushy gig. I was in an air-conditioned office. I worked on computers. I mean, the most exciting thing I did was I threw a live grenade onto a field for training.
Yeah, for training purposes.
For training. It wasn't like a combat situation.
Yeah,
or anything,
you
right?
were.
No, definitely not. It was like, throw a grenade in the ocean. No, we don't do that. Okay, that's dangerous, right? The other cool thing, probably the coolest thing I've got to do, is a thing called spy rigging, SPIE, spy rigging, special purpose insertion extraction, where the gist of it is you put on a harness, you lay down in a field with a couple other dudes, and then a helicopter shows up with a big fat rope attached to it. And then you hook yourself into that rope, and then the helicopter takes off, and you're dangling from the bottom of this helicopter attached to a rope, and you're literally just like free dangling in midair, and it takes you around for a couple minutes and puts you back down. That was probably one of the coolest things I've done in the military.
That's awesome. Yeah, because they just come and swoop and pick you up, right?
Yeah, it's for special insertion extraction. So if you're stuck in a spot where they can't land a plane, they cannot, do a whole lot of things. You just harness up. There'll be a helicopter with a rope. Just hook onto it, and they'll pick you up and take you wherever you need to go. So that was pretty cool.
I tried to go in the Army. I had to enlist in the Army after 9/11. As you know, probably many Americans probably did, but I had childhood asthma and had a knee surgery already. And at that time, the Army was like, "No, I'm sorry,
I can't take you.
We don't want you, But I remember, I was in ROTC in college when I first went, and we had an opportunity to go down to Fort Benning and train for a week with the Army Rangers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hell yeah.
Because that's where they do a lot of their training. Oh my God, that was a week worth of hell.
I bet.
The only good thing was
is
that we weren't staying in barracks, so we were like in a hotel, and we could actually go out. Okay. I think Columbus, Georgia is like what's around there, but we could actually go out at night where, people that were on the base that were in training couldn't. So we had that option, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how those folks do it, especially those advanced combat units. And
yeah. we had a recon. They called it a recon locker, small unit, small detachment next to the building I worked at. And every time, not every day, but many days, I go to work or go to my building at like 7:30 a.m. These dudes would be in the jetty in the water, like training. Yeah. And I'm like, it's cold as fuck out here. I can only imagine how cold it is in the water. And they're Marine Corps recon. You don't fuck with them. Just like SEALs. There's certain every group has their special forces.
Has their special forces. Rangers, divers, recon,
right? Rangers. Yeah. Yep. So you don't fuck with them. Okay.
Exactly. That's the best of the best, right? That's the best of the best that we have to offer for that specific branch. And then if you're even better than that, they put you in a joint unit, right? A joint task force. And
if you're really, really good, they put you in charge of making decisions. Then you're really in trouble, right?
Which is why we probably don't have too many people making good decisions, right?
Well,
But yeah,
making decisions is hard, man. Like even in everything, right? Making a decision that doesn't just affect you, but other people. I think people, I'm segueing off a little bit, but I feel like when, say, for example, you're in a group and you'd have to decide, hey, where are we going to go eat? There's always that lull of like 20 seconds of, I don't want to make a decision for everyone because what if you don't like my decision?
Exactly.
Just fucking yell something out. If you don't like it, somebody will say it, right? But that indecisive, I shouldn't say it's indecision. I think it's just the worry about not having to make a decision for other people because you do not know how they're going to receive it, if that's going to work for them. It's like, look, if just make a fucking decision. Just, hey,
Absolutely.
Let's go to Applebee's. If somebody doesn't like it, they'll say it,
Exactly. So, Andy, are you married?
No, I'm
okay.
We're going to be.
I was going to say, because that's the number one conversation my wife and I have had for 20 years.
What's that?
Is what are we going to have for dinner? And then nobody's like, I don't know. And then you do say something. And now, of course, when you get married, though, right, Andy, you have a little back and forth that you can have some respectful.
It's like, my God, so my mom, she lived with us for a hot minute while she was trying to get herself situated down here. And I remember one day, and this will give you like a good short encapsulation. Besides the tea stirring, the tea stirring the story, they'll give you a nice little idea of who and what she is. So she was living with us for a couple of days. I come downstairs to get ready for my work day, and she goes, "Good morning, son." I go, "Morning, Mom." And she's like, "Would you like some tea?" And I go, "Yeah, sounds really good, actually." She goes, "Help yourself. It's on the stove." Why the fuck did you ask me if I wanted some tea? So ever since then, between me and my girl, we have these little inside jokes of like, "Hey, babe, you hungry?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, help yourself. Food's in the kitchen."
Exactly. I know I've said to my wife once, just joking around, I'd be like, "Honey, are you hungry?" She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, you better do something about that." It's just jokingly, of course.
No, of course. I got something similar where it's like, babe, do you smell that? No, me neither. Get in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. With all joking, so if anybody sees these clips, we are definitely joking. Yeah, it is funny that. So are you you're living with a girl? With your girl? Okay. Any plans on getting married? I don't want to throw that out.
No, we're actually going to go ring shopping tomorrow. Right? We've been ring shopping for a little while. We talked about it. And yeah, we're progressing the relationship. We've been together since the pandemic for about 5 years now.
Nice.
Things are going well. We're aligned with what we want out of each other, out of life. We've traveled together. We travel well together. So yeah, all these things are aligning very nicely.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. And in all seriousness, the one thing I can say, I've been married for 20 years. I've been with my wife since high school. So we've been together for a long time, like I think 25, 26 years altogether. And just communicate. That's the biggest thing. When we stop talking to each other, that's when things go by the wayside. And if we can talk to each other, and that really goes with anybody. It doesn't have to be your spouse or significant other. We can. That's where things break down. When we don't talk to each other and don't try to find out where people are coming from, we're just going to have a bad time.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
Honesty and communication, two biggest keys.
Honesty to a fault, right? To a degree, right? There's a limit, right, of how honest you want to be about your actions, right?
There are those things known as little white lies that don't hurt anybody, right?
Or oversharing, right?
Yes, exactly.
I make the joke of, whenever she's out either working, because she has a job that keeps her busy later in the evening, later at night, and she'll take a day off to go, do other work-related things. I'm like, great, I get the house to myself. I can shit with the door open. It's great.
Exactly.
It's just little things like that, right? Guys, I think guys at the end of the day are so simple, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I think, was it Chris Rock, one of the comedians, he said something like, guys are simple creatures. It's food, sex, silence. Feed me, fuck me, shut the fuck up. It's really that simple.
That's literally the only things we need. So Andy, you're not a author? Being an author is not your full-time job, right?
No, and I've had some.
Yet.
I've had some. Not yet. I've had some. How should I put it? Friends would ask me, so you're an author full time, now you're a writer. And I'm like, I still don't identify with either a writer or an author. Sure, I've written a book. Sure, I've published it. Sure, my name is on a book saying written by. So of course, by definition,
you're an author.
I have 100%. But I've been an IT guy for 25 years. I do IT. I do it very well. I'm a computer gurk. I'm a computer. I want to say my left side said geek and the right side said nerd, and gurk came out. Okay, so I'm computer gurk, right? And I probably always will be. I like the technology. I like what I do. I'm good at it. So when people say, oh, so you're an author now, you're a writer. I'm an author, yes. I still don't consider myself a writer because I don't sit there and I go, I'm going to write this story down. I'm going to, make a little anecdote about this. I'm going to, publish something in the New York Times. I'm not a writer. I wrote a book. I'm an author. And I think that's where the story of my writing will probably end.
So you think it'll be just this one book? And
I think so. I poured a lot of my stories. There's a few more that I kind of thought about, right? Just like the story about me getting the trip money reimbursed and everything. There's a few more that I came up with that I could probably fill a couple pages with, but I don't have enough material for another book that's even 100 pages. Now, however, if some clearing or publishing house were to say, Andy, here's $50,000, we expect, a volume 2, in 12 months, I'm like, maybe I'll think about some more stories then, right?
Exactly. But you're also saying too, because you do have a couple other stories and obviously life's not over yet. There could, right? I'm going to say this, there could be a possibility of a sequel.
Could. I feel like, so if you've read Tucker Max, right? I think Tucker Max is one of the few authors that have kept their material fresh. I do believe that the initial release, the initial book, the second and the third release that he has, right, it kind of tapers off because you run out of material. I think the same thing happens to good comedians. Louis C.K. His initial stuff was just side-splittingly funny, and then of course, it's still entertaining, but I think it's lost some of that initial pizzazz, because I really do believe that you pour so much into getting your name out there. So when they say, great, do that five more times, it's like, I don't have that material. Like, I'm sorry, I just can't make up these stories out of thin air. So I think there's a diminishing return, right? When you try to squeeze more out of things when it just isn't there.
Yeah, I think another comedian I think of, like you said, there was Bert Kreischer. You know, because he's got he takes the shirt off, he does his story, and that's it. I mean,
like,
he's
look,
funny. Don't get me wrong.
It, but
don't get me wrong. He's got it, but it's like you can't. How much more of that can you do?
You can only do the same shtick so many times to people. Like, I get it. You set the line. You're the guy who says the punchline. Okay, what more do you have? Right.
Exactly. And I think that's probably what that writing, being a comedian, anything where you have to have like that artistic ability is tough, but it is. I am glad that you wrote the book, because I had a fun time reading it, and I'm going to read it again because, like I said, it's just an easy read. I love it. I mean, it's just one of those books where you can sit back and really relax and just enjoy the stories that are coming through, and I'm at the age of my life where I like to relax a lot. I'm like, I've worked a lot. Yeah, I worked a lot. I want to sit on the front porch, yell at the kids on the lawn.
That's right. That's right, because you've earned it. That's your fucking right.
Exactly. That's it. But yeah, it was a great book, and I do encourage all of our listeners to go out and check it out. I know it's on Amazon.
I will plug, if I can, I'll put a personal plug here real quick. So if you go to andysbook.com, one word, andysbook.com, all there is just a picture of me holding up the book. There's a link to get it on Amazon, right? Click on it. It gets you straight to it. You can also just go on Amazon and search the name.
And I think I got it through your website. Well, and then it went to Amazon.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
However, if any of the listeners here would like a free signed copy, if you go to andysbook.com/gift. So again, andysbook.com/gift, punch in your information. I swear to God, I will not use your personal info for any more than sending you a copy, right? I have a few left here. I'm more than happy to sign them and send one to you. All I ask for is, once you're done with it, leave me a genuine review, and that's it.
Well, I wish I would have known that. I want a signed copy now.
You can either you come to Vegas, or I come to Ohio, or you can just be like, hey, I came across your website. Can I get a copy? I'm more than happy to send you one. So give me your details. I'm more than happy to.
It is great though, because I love supporting folks that do anything. So if I can, and let me tell you folks, that you're not going to pay $50 for this book. So, it's not like you're going out there.
It's very reasonably priced.
It is very reasonably priced. So if you can help.
Even if you're a starving college student, you're like, hey man, I can't afford the $12. I'm like, I'm happy to send you a PDF of it. Okay. The money, look, I charge $11.95, I think, on Amazon. My payoff for each is like $4.80 some cents. I'm not in it for the money. I'm not going to get rich selling these books. Okay.
This is not Andy Dietrich. This is not Andy Dietrich, the millionaire, sitting before us today.
Get rich scheme, right? It's like, how to get rich quick? Well, write a book and sell for $10,000. I'm like, that's not going to work. Right?
It's funny because I had a publisher on last week. His name's Terry Whalen, and he's talking about publishing myths. And his first myth that he talked about was, the number one myth is people think if they write a book and get it published that it's going to make money.
All the girls would just line up, right? It's like you get fame, fortune, money, pussy, right? All the above.
Exactly.
All the cocaine that you ever want is like, it doesn't work like that, man.
First of all, you're not a movie star. Right?
And even then, they have to work for it, right? You don't just wake up saying, I'm a movie star, give me fame. It doesn't work like that.
Exactly. that is funny though, that you sit there and think, hey, if someone were to publish it or even self-publish or whatever, then I'll make a lot of money. But he said something that even blew my mind. That he goes, if you sell a book and the whole time it's in print, it sells 5,000 copies, that's a successful book.
That's huge. So even from my point of view, that's hugely successful.
But you sit there and think about it, like 5,000 at, even $10 a piece, you know what I mean? That's not a ton of money considering how much cost goes into producing it. But yeah.
Great thing about KDP, right? And I looked at like publishing houses and the way to get it published. And they're like, let's go through Amazon, KDP, Amazon, Kindle Direct. It says Kindle, but it doesn't mean it's only digital. It's a KDP program. You upload your manuscript, you give it a cover. And oddly enough, nowadays, because you can make changes to the book and to the cover as you need to, right? You can update it still.
Nice.
Right? But nowadays, as of like a few months ago, there is now a check that says, I hereby verify that none of the information was generated with AI. And then you say, yes, I verify. And then there's another prompt that says, do you certify, or whatever the wording is, right? Do you promise, or how much you can promise online, that this is not AI generated content? So I can only imagine that they're getting all kinds of just garbage, right? From self-generating prompts and everything.
Yep. Well, I mean, and everybody's using AI and everyday
I use
things
it at
now.
work. It's great for work, stuff.
I
Like
use
if I
it for work
can't,
too.
everyone uses
I'm
it.
like you. I work in IT, but I'm not a
Okay.
smart IT guy like you. I'm just a Scrum Master. So
Well,
you're probably the only person I know that knows what that is, right? Do you know what
I
a
do know
Scrum
what that
Master
is.
is?
Yes,
There you
yes.
go. That's it.
I
You
do know what
ask
that is.
anybody
Yeah.
else that's outside of IT, they
So
have
you
no
wash
idea.
decks? I don't understand. Your what?
Yeah. What's a Scrum? But yeah, I use it for, AI and stuff too. And I break down user stories and things like that, or
Mm-hmm.
even on the pod. That's what saved me so much time on the podcast is this platform we're recording on right now called Riverside
Mm-hmm.
will turn our video into text. And then I can actually edit via text. So I can actually see like
I like
the
that.
words we're saying. So when I say, or right 1,000 times, I can actually see it and then just take it out.
It does that for you automatically,
And it does it
huh?
just for you,
Goddamn.
automatically. And then there's another one called Descript that you can actually put a script in and it will create an AI video with characters and everything. And you can have like a whole thing. And I was like, holy crap. I mean, AI is just,
It's insane.
yeah,
It's just insane. Okay, so from you being an IT guy or a geek like I am, right, from way back in the day, I think I even have some mentions of this in the book. What still blows my mind to this day, my very first internet connection was a 33.6 modem in the mid 90s, right? On a good day, I would get a download throughput of 2.8 kilobytes per second. If that doesn't mean anything to you, if you're not geeky enough, for the listeners, that's fine. Just keep that 2.8K per second in mind. Nowadays, you get a coax cable connection of a gig line. So the term gig, right, may not mean a whole lot to the layman, but me going from a modem in the mid 90s from 2.8 kilobytes per second, now I can download on multiple streams hundreds of megabytes, which is a 1,000-fold increase on multiple streams times 100 what that speed was per second. It took us to download back in the day to download a CD worth of content on a dial-up line took days, like maybe at least a solid full day, 24 hours, just to constantly download the stream. And God forbid the stream errored out halfway through. You had to restart the entire thing,
someone called your
right?
phone and kicked you off the internet,
God
right?
forbid, right? Nowadays, you press the button, you get a cup of coffee, it's done by the time you sit back down.
Absolutely.
It still blows my mind how fast it is.
That blows my mind too, because we're sitting here, I'm looking at you. You're all the way across the country. I'm all the way across the country. We're talking to each other. We can see each other
live.
Could you imagine what it would have been like when we were kids if we tried to do something like this? First of all, for those listening, if you don't understand, if you wanted to download a photo back then with the dial-up, it would take you 3 days. I'm not kidding. It would take so long.
First it would be pixelated, then less pixelated, and then less pixelated. Yep.
It was so terrible. And then the mention that I made is, everything went through the phone line, traditional, home phone line. So if someone picked up the phone, or if somebody called and you had, you didn't have call waiting or something, I forget what it was, it would just kick you right off.
That's right.
And it seemed like it took a half hour just to get connected anyway.
Sometimes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, on that note, since you said that, jogged my memory for something else, a little bit more introspective. So the insanity of what you just said, we can translate to when you have a discussion with someone, your brain will form the thoughts and the words, and you can say them in real time. Your mouth and the tongue compresses the air in such a way that the airwaves come out. They hit your ear. Your brain picks it up and processes it and puts the meaning behind these weird sounds, puts the words together and understands the grammatical inference, right? And it does all that in real time. How insane is that when you really think about that? The processing that happens both on the speaker and the listener, all the things in between. And we just do it. It happens in real time, and no one even really cares or notices.
Yeah, it doesn't even think about it anymore. It's so normal and natural now, too, that we just think, oh, well, this is the norm. And look at all the years of invention and technology that went into just the platform we're talking on today.
And then people say the world is still flat. I'm like, how the fuck can you say the world is flat if all this technology exists? Come on.
Come on, common sense, folks.
And
right?
Okay, let's talk about for a split second, right? I don't want to give these guys any more credence than they already have, but let's assume for a split second that the Earth is flat, okay? We would have no sunsets. The sun would just get smaller in the air and hover back and come back around to you. There would be no way a sunset could happen if we had a flat Earth. The sun would just hover above us and get smaller and larger.
I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right, because it would never set going around.
There would be nowhere to go. It would just be hovering above us.
Yeah, so it would just go around this way instead of.
That's right.
Yeah.
Idiots. I can't.
That's a great point. See, this is why I liked your book too, because some of the things that you wrote in there, especially in the second part, make you think. Make you think outside of the just what you normally like might pass off. It makes you think about, oh, you know what, that does make sense, or oh, you know what, I could probably treat someone a little better. That's and that's probably the old.
Depends on who they are.
That's true. I have a hard time with that sometimes. I know I come on here and talk, but like when I get into work, I kind of go back into that old cop mode of mine from, the years, 13 years as a cop. It gets ingrained in you,
you have some,
and so sometimes I'll get there and when, people are like, well, no, we can't, and, I just be like, no, listen, this is what we need to do.
A little bit of assertiveness goes a long way. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Exactly. And then I get told, you shouldn't really talk to the president of the company that way. Oh yeah, you're probably right.
Yes, but
I probably shouldn't.
However, I bet you money that on the receiving end, they may say that, but someone's going to be like, you know what? I appreciate it. The straightforwardness and no bullshitness about it.
Somebody said that to me because this just happened, I don't know, about a month ago. And someone said that to me and I was like, I realized I could be straight and to the point. I wasn't trying to be, a jerk or anything like that. It's like, but when I get into work mode, I'm like, efficiency is key for me.
Love it.
I'm here to do a job.
I can totally appreciate that. Yes.
Yeah. I'm here to do a job, get things done. I'm not doing a lot of the actual work, for the products that we're building, but my teams are. And so I got to make sure that they have everything they need. And like, I really live by the servant leader type of role where it's like, I'm here to do stuff for you. You're not here to do stuff for me, So when I work with my teams, I want to make sure they go. And, I kept having people changing scopes of our projects like on the fly. And I was like, we can't do that. I was like,
can't do that, man.
Do you understand how hard it is for an engineer or a data scientist or whatever to be really focused on one thing? And then you say, hey, stop everything you've done and then switch to this.
Switch direction. You can't, dude. No, you can't.
Come on, just let me finish this and then I'll get on to it. I promise. But yeah, it's, but yeah, I can be straight and to the point because I come to the, old school thinking of I'm here to do a job. I'm not here to make friends. Now if I make friends, don't get me wrong. I'm not against that by any means, but my number one job is the only reason I'm there is to make money so I can support my family. I do enjoy doing it. It's not, not like I don't enjoy it, but right. If they weren't paying us, we probably wouldn't do it. Not for that company. Anyway, we do it for ourselves.
That's right.
But
the term I was told once that really stuck with me is, treat it like you're a benevolent dictator.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I really do. And I think, a lot of people are afraid nowadays to stand up or have a contrary voice. And I would tell people, no, have the contrary voice. Be nice about it. Don't be like me. A little bit of
assertiveness is not a bad thing. If I come to this is like even the littlest things. When you come to a stop and say it's a 4-way stop with stop signs, unless it's a clear, and you both get there at the same time, everyone kind of just sits there and waits for the other person. Just fucking go. The other person will appreciate you taking the initiative and just go. There's no more of that back and forth. Just fucking go.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You're absolutely right. So, Andy, I got to ask you this. So I asked you earlier how to pronounce your last name, and I said Dietrich. So I did.
We'll do the name.
I did say it right? I did say it correctly the first time, but so let's go to the,
My given full name is Andreas Dietrich. And I go by Andy Dietrich, one, because the Andreas, a lot of times it's kind of intermingled with, it's a traditional Hispanic name, right? Not that I come across very Hispanic, but I like to keep my German heritage the way it is, and just Andy is an easier, right, nickname for that. Also, English speakers cannot, and I really mean that most sincerely, you cannot say the soft R of Andreas or Dietrich, and you cannot say the soft CH sound that comes at the end of it. You just can't. You don't have the vocal, like
because of the way that our language is.
Absolutely, 100%, right? And if you were to go to Germany and then study the language, or just go to Europe and like listen to them speak, maybe after some time. But again, I can appreciate people trying to pronounce it. I'm like, look, just say Dietrich. Dietrich is fine. You're not going to offend me, right?
We're just going to Americanize it, right?
You're right. It's like, so when people say, well, you went to Mexico, you mean Mexico? I'm like, shut the fuck up. Call it Mexico.
Exactly. Right? We're in America. Yeah. That's right. Mexico.
We speak American.
Exactly. Oh my goodness.
Where's your bald-headed eagle? That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what was funny? I saw some on the internet. I don't know if it was AI or not the other day, but all the stuff going on with the United States and Canada and Mexico, the tariffs and stuff.
Yep.
But I saw this thing of this bald eagle coming and attacking a Canadian goose, and they like ended up killing it. And I was just like, they're like, this is what's going to happen. And I was like, oh my God, the internet. you gotta love the internet. They'll give you whatever you want.
When did you get onto the internet?
It would have been probably around 97.
Okay, probably around the same time I did. I will say that back in the day, for you old timers listening, the old school internet, like when Netscape Navigator was a thing,
Oh my
right?
gosh, yes.
Right back in the days, right? AOL, ASL was like wasn't even there yet. I don't think AOL was even a thing at the time, right? You would have GeoCities, Angel Fire, Tripod, those websites, right? I
Hmm.
feel like the internet back then was a little bit more raw, Wild West, unfiltered. I saw a lot of shit back in those days that I wish I could unsee, right?
Yeah.
But I think it also came with it, or what came with it was a lot of grit. And I feel like, sure, you can find anything and everything on the internet these days, but back in the day, it was just a lot, I don't know, just raw, or if that makes any sense, right? A lot more. I don't know how to describe it, but you were there. How would you describe it?
Yeah, I would say it was kind of like the Wild West. If you think about it, I mean, anybody could put anything on there. There was really no
No
restrictions or
censorship, no, yeah.
guardrails or anything like that. I mean, the one thing that I do remember a lot about, the early days of internet was it was mostly text. Because like we already talked about, the internet speeds were so slow. If you were to put a, photo on a page, on a web page, it would
Hell
take you
no.
2 days to
Would never
download
load.
it.
Hell no.
So, but yeah, it was mostly text and blue links, click
Yeah.
links to go to different pages, or
When you had to
instant
blink, did
messaging.
you do HTML programming with a blink tag? That was a thing back then. Like the
Yeah.
text would just blink on its own, and
Yep.
they canceled. They yanked that shortly thereafter. They're like, we
Yep.
can't have things just blinking on a page. Take that tag out.
Yeah. No, it has come such a long way, but
It
to
has.
notice that the technology's come a long way, but I've just kind of noticed, even with most of our coding and the different languages that we use, even though we use some new stuff, you see some stuff come back around. Like I never thought I would hear COBOL again until they started
Really?
doing Social Security, and they're like, you don't understand it because it's written in COBOL, but it's like, no,
And that's factual, but
yeah.
is it coming back, or is it
No,
just
I don't
legacy
think so. I
because
think
you have to
it's
support
because
it
the
because it's
government
still
uses
sure.
outdated stuff. You know how
Yeah,
the government is.
of
But yeah,
course.
stuff like that I've seen. Like Python was almost going away for a long time,
It's
and
big
now
now. It's like it's
it's
what powers all
huge.
the AI stuff,
All the
right? It's
AI, because
all
that's
yeah.
what my company does. Is we're a large data model AI
Okay.
company, so we do mostly for like healthcare companies.
Good positive application of it right nowadays. And you've been on the internet for long enough. You know that 90% of the stuff out there has to do with porn and nudity
Yep.
and smut, right? And it's like, look, I know that a lot of AI stuff is just used for that purpose. You're talking about making videos out of thin air, and you just type in what you want to see and it'll
That's
do it for
crazy.
you. It's insane, right? Just think about the technology of it. But I like the fact that there, in your case, some true, honest, positive applications of this technology where people are like, it actually does have really, really good things that can be used for, just like cryptocurrency, right? The blockchain. I
Yeah.
think the whole cryptocurrency area is probably one of the worst ways to introduce the benefits of a blockchain, to the world, right? Blockchain has so many good applications, but because people just think of, oh, it's cryptocurrency, it's
Hmm.
Bitcoin, it's Ethereum, it's NFTs. I'm like, no, it's the technology was just implemented in such a way that makes it really, really, really hard to sell.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And I think that's one of the things why I got into technology, especially after I left law enforcement. I was in healthcare for a while, and through a series of unfortunate events, I became a scrum master from a guy who's just like, hey, I think you could do it. And I'd never written a line of code in my life, when I started that job. But I've always loved technology and building things and helping people, get what they need to get the job done. And ever since then, I've just been like really bitten by the bug. I try to do a little coding on my own. The weird thing, this is the weird thing, is if you put some code in front of me, I can read it and probably tell you what it's doing.
Yep.
But if you were to ask me to write
Write
the
it.
code, I can't do it.
Hell no.
So,
It's like listening to a language, listening to
yeah,
two people talk a language slowly. I'm like, I can pick out some words, but
yeah,
speaking it, I don't even know what word to use. Yeah.
that's exactly the same thing. Yeah, because I'm always like, and we do a lot with EDI transactions too. And I know that I could do, with this, electronic data interchange, I think is what it's supposed to be, standardized ways to send text information and they use it a lot in shipping. Healthcare is real big, but they use it for claims. And it's the same thing with that. It's just a flat file, just a flat text file is all it is. But they have different positions where if it's in, line 1, position 24, that's the last name of the patient.
Okay,
So
interesting.
it's different
Okay.
things like that, but it's supposed to be standard. The funny thing is it's never standard, because you get one company that says, oh, I'm going to do it this way, or I'm going to do it that way, or, so.
That's like Linux distributions. That's one great thing. And like the worst thing about it, it's all over the place. It's great because you can do whatever you want, but there is no standardization across different
Exactly. There's no guardrails to keep you in a straight line,
No.
It's been a great adventure for me. I love working with the folks that I work with, and the stuff that they do just blows me away. And that's, I think that's one of the things too, with most of the places I've worked at in tech. I feel like they, for the most part, have treated their people a little bit better than, a standard business, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the days of you rolling out of bed, you rolling out of IT school, ITT Tech or DeVry University with your computer degree, whatever it was back in the early 2000s, and expecting to make six figures, like those days are over, my dude. Like if you want to get into IT, you got to work help desk for a couple of years, get your wet ears, a little unwetted. But we all have to go through the trenches first. And that took me, I do well for myself, but it took me a good 20, 25 years, to get where I am today. So it takes
absolutely.
time, right?
And I think that's not to go off on a tangent, but I think that's what some of the younger folks don't see nowadays is the hard, just like we talked about your book and doing the podcast, is all the hard work that goes into the quote unquote success. And by success, just meaning the end state, right? And, so they see it as Andy's got, he's in a great position. He's got this, or Nathan, he's this, and that's what I want, but I want it now. But they don't do all the extra stuff, to actually get you there.
The worst is when they say, I'm going to become an influencer. I'm going to become a YouTube personality. I'm like,
I heard my nephew say that. Yeah.
I roll my eyes. I'm like, I wish you well. But it's like saying, I want to become an MLB player. I want to become an all-star basketball player. I'm like, it doesn't, look, I'm sure some get picked, but you don't just get it because you say, I want it. There's a ton of work that goes into that.
Yep. And look at how many people, just think about when you were in high school, how many people played basketball just on your school team, and then multiply that times the amount of high schools in the nation. And then out of that, the entire world. And then now you're one out of millions that could possibly make it, And
they only pick, a couple thousand across all the different, teams and everything. Chances are not very good. No, for sure.
But the one thing I like with technology too is that it's always growing, and there's always going to be new stuff for us to do.
Yeah. I talked about this with a friend of mine. He's an old timer too. Old timer, it sounds so weird to say. He's an old school IT person. And I told him, like, look, some of the younger generation of IT workers will never understand the pain of trying to install a new piece of hardware in your computer, and you have to put the dip switches, the physical dip switches, onto the hardware to tell it what IRQ and DMA to use, right? If you plug it in and you pick the wrong one, it's just not going to get recognized. You'll still boot up, but nothing will happen, right? You got to pull it back out, try a different dip,
make sure
put it back in, right? Having the master and slave configuration on an IDE drive, right? You'll never have to worry about that stuff ever again. But nowadays, we'll deal with all kinds of other dumb issues that we never had to deal with 20 years ago, right? So
that's true.
You trade one sense of nonsense for another set of nonsense.
Exactly. And that's a good way to put it. One set of nonsense for another set of nonsense.
That's right.
But yeah, excellent.
Nothing
Andy.
but nonsense. Nonsense everywhere. It's like
nothing but
like
nonsense.
the Buzz Lightyear meme. Nonsense. Nonsense everywhere.
Exactly. Well, folks, there you have it. We had a great episode with Andy Dietrich today. He is the author of Play Stupid Games, Win Stupid Prizes. Make sure you take a look at that. It's an excellent book, easy read, nice short stories that just will get you laughing, thinking, and enjoying what you're reading. I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of Just a Dude podcast, where we've had the pleasure of diving into the world of stupid games and stupid prizes with the witty and insightful Andy Dietrich. We've laughed, we've learned, and hopefully we've all seen a bit of ourselves in the stories shared today. A big thank you to Andy for joining us. Your book, Play Stupid Games, Win Stupid Prizes, is not just a collection of tales, but a mirror to our own lives, teaching us to embrace our missteps with humor and grace. If you're intrigued by the stories we've discussed, make sure to go grab your copy, which is available on Amazon. You can also check out Andy's book at andysbook.com. And all of his information is on our show page under show guests at justadudepodcast.com. Remember to follow us on all social media for updates on future episodes and to continue the conversation. If you've enjoyed this episode or have your own stupid game or story, drop us a comment or a review. It's your support that keeps this conversation going. Next time on Just a Dude podcast, we've got another incredible guest lined up to share their unique journey, so stay tuned. Until then, keep playing life's games, but maybe with a bit more wisdom. or at least a good laugh. I'm Nathan signing off. Take care and keep it real.